Dystopia warning, obviously. Welcome back to General Election Day. I'm going to have to get straight into it today, I'm afraid. No time for lube. But mind you, after 14 years of the Tories ruining your life, I suppose you're pretty used to that, aren't you? One of the reasons for that is that I've got a to-do list longer than War and Peace, and the other, which I'm sure you can hear in the background, is my two cats, Fred and Edie. But don't get too attached, because I'm just about to reach the point where I boil them down for glue. Anyway, I was originally coming on here to tell you all about little Rishi Sunak campaigning in Henley, only to get beautifully trolled by the Lib Dems, who decided to do a drive-by, or technically a sail-by, on a small boat. Yeah. I have to say the Lib Dems are having a brilliant election. They're just treating it like a massive adventure holiday. And oddly, all of their trolling attempts have involved water. Check this out.
Oh gosh, we're going to keep going, right, okay. So that's interesting, fine. And then were you all, actually one of you said you weren't particularly sporty beforehand.
I was not sporty at all.
So you can pick it up.
Yeah, you can pick it. I think it's actually a sport where it's, unlike some of the other sports I've had friends do previously, I think anyone can actually pick it up at any age and you can still get a really good success from it. Like I managed to get a GB vest in my first 3 years and that wasn't...
On so many levels, that is beautiful. Quite fitting that his snack of choice was donuts, isn't it? One of my favourite bits about this, though, is that of the campaigners on the small boat, front and centre was Lib Dem Deputy Leader Daisy Cooper. Do you want to know what that clip reminded me of? This. Same energy.
Try pedestrianising this.
Okay, can you hold that pose now, Alan?
I don't know about waterway to get away, more like waterway to lose a general election. I'm afraid that's the only jolly bit of news that I've got for you today. I'll give you a little heads up. If you're in any way adverse to working class women handing private schoolboys their arse, you're not going to like the next bit. But if that was in any way a problem for you, you probably wouldn't be following me, would you? I'm particularly glad to see that this is finally at the forefront. Because not enough people know that our current Prime Minister, before his lucrative career in politics, lucrative for him, not us, worked for a hedge fund at the heart of the financial crisis. Only taken the press, 16 years to properly address this. But that's kind of in keeping with my broader general points about the British media, isn't it? I'm incredibly glad that Labour are bringing this up, and I hope that it makes it into the leadership debates, because not enough people have been told about this. And it's not just this. Rishi Sunak made his fortune betting against Britain, like many hedge funders do, whilst pretending to be patriots, like Crispin O'Day, who donated thousands to Vote Leave campaigns and then cashed into the tune of millions as the pound crashed, and we were all left worse off as the results of the Brexit referendum seeped in. The reason that Rishi Sunak is rich is because we are all poorer. Now, Liz Truss, Kwasi Kwarteng, around the time they tanked the economy, was said to be having lunches with hedge funders who were well known for doing this awful practice of shorting the pound, which is basically betting against Britain's prosperity. And this is why I call them fake patriots. But in the case of Rishi Sunak, well, there's not just the fact that he made his millions by doing this. It's very common for Tory donors and Tories themselves to make money doing this whilst pretending to love Britain. But no, it's what came after. Gordon Brown did his level best and an extremely good job for which he was not thanked in saving Britain from an even worse fate during the financial crisis. Then in 2010 there was a coalition government, wasn't there? The Conservatives and the Lib Dems got in bed with them, didn't they? It's what David Cameron, who Rishi Sunak recently made a lord, presumably because it was slim pickings in terms of who he could choose to form his cabinet from the absolute farm that is the Conservative Party nowadays. Anyway, Cameron, Osborne, they inflicted ideological austerity on us and made us pay back for what was lost during the financial crash, including bailing out companies whose workers made millions, as countless people in Britain lost their livelihoods and their homes. So with this ideological austerity, what did they do? Cut our public services, didn't they? Libraries disappeared, youth groups disappeared, support for poor people disappeared, resulting in deprivation, poverty, knife crime, and obviously one of the biggest losers in all of this was our NHS. Found it very difficult not to refer to Hunt as a massive loser then. So how is this relevant? I know all this off the top of my head. In 2016, there was a pandemic preparedness exercise called Exercise Cygnus. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that Hunt failed to adequately engage with it because he didn't like the decisions that were involved in terms of life or death, who gets a ventilator, etc. Oh, it's all right, mate. It's just your fucking job, isn't it? You know, as health secretary. You know, that's what you're literally employed to do. The broader point that I'm trying to make here is due to the ideological austerity inflicted on us by Osborne and Cameron, they failed to adequately implement the findings of the exercise, which is if we have a pandemic, we're dead. They hid the exercise for ages. They wouldn't show the public the full findings of it. And in the wake of the pandemic, that's hardly surprising, is it? Basically, the exercise said we would be screwed if we had a pandemic. We had a pandemic, we were screwed. They didn't replenish any of the stockpiles, no. And it gets even worse, because what else did they do? The Conservative government opened VIP lanes for their mates, who again cashed in from us to the tune of billions. Taxpayers' money, you know, just up the wall. And look at where we are now. There's no money. There is. It's just sitting in the bank accounts offshore of your mates. This is why I want them in prison. This is why the COVID inquiry is not adequate. There needs to be criminal convictions. Hundreds of thousands of people dead. Many, many people disabled. Billions in taxpayers' money spent on yachts as our NHS workers died, trying to save our lives. Oh yeah, and they partied as well. If you still want to vote Conservative after hearing all of that, you're beyond help. Talking of being beyond help, on his Twitter earlier today, Farage said there would be an emergency election announcement at 4 p.m. He's decided to become leader of reform in a move that nobody saw coming. Decided to distance himself, has he, from his criminal mate? He's such a patriot, he decided that he'd rather dedicate his time to Trump. Well, apparently not. I'll give you a really brief summary of what happened today. A toad-faced, backy-stained monorail salesman who fronts an extremist fringe party was inexplicably given airtime live on all the major news channels so he can waffle on about inconsequential bullshit at thick fucks who seemingly have a kink for posh liars buggering them even more senseless. He stood 7 times. On one of those occasions, he was beaten by a dolphin. British politics. I live near Clacton, short train ride away. It's deeply deprived, therefore primed for a con artist. Tempted to pay him a little visit, you know. No, I'm not going to milkshake him. One thing that I never understood about all those people milkshaking politicians, I mean, why were they throwing milkshake when they could have been throwing piss? Probably didn't want to waste the piss. I wonder if the people of Clacton are aware that Nigel Farage has done an Ian Dale. He told The Times earlier this year, in relation to standing in Clacton, "Do I want to spend every Friday for the next 5 years in Clacton? As someone that lives nearby, no, I wouldn't. But that's largely because crime rates are through the roof and the education system evidently isn't up to scratch. Because at the general election in 2019, the Tories got a majority of 24,000. Because they're really good at conning people into voting against their best interests, something they have in common with Nigel Farage. Oh yeah, and in other news, I haven't got the, but Kemi Badenoch quite astutely proved today why people call her Bad Enoch. Fortunately, she's really, really bad at being a fascist, just like the rest of the Tories. Not sure this lot would be, though. But they're not going to win any seats anyway. That's all from me. The fever dream continues.